Hi, I'm your host, Marlo Lemon, and you're listening to Wild Voice, the podcast where I take this voice of mine and share my wild journey with you. Being widowed at 34 with a 15-month-old, most would see as life ending, and instead, I alchemized it and put life back together. Through my own healing, I realized who I am and what I'm here to do. I'm an intuitive energy healer and spiritual teacher, and sharing how I view the world is how I help you upgrade your life and alchemize your journey into magic. Today's episode is about tough conversations. You know, everyone's favorite thing. Well, I'm going to break down a little of my process to give you some context. So, we are all unique individuals, and our healing journeys are extremely specific. So, to get to a place to truly operate this way, it takes some work, and continues to be work. With everything I've done and continue to evolve into, I'm still learning. But here is the gist. Side note, if this is your first episode, I would pause your cute little butt right there and head back to season 1. A lot of what we cover gives a foundation and explanation of a lot of these practices and tools I'm going to talk about. And I'm not going to give much explanation on those for sake of time in this episode. So if you are listening and you're like, I have no fucking clue what she's talking about, I suggest you bump your little butt back to season 1. And guess what? This episode will be here waiting for you when you're ready. This podcast is meant to build upon itself with each episode, so just keep that in mind if this episode is your first step. Okay, so let's say you have something you want to bring up to your significant other, or could even be something tough you need to talk about with your child. Nash is really good at asking me questions about things when sometimes I might not have the answer right off the top of my head. For a while, I thought I needed to have the answer quick. That is something we are programmed or raised with, or a combo of both. Like in school, when we get called on, if we take too long, it means we weren't paying attention and we don't know the answer. If our parents ask us something and we don't respond quickly, they can tend to have impatience with that. When really thinking about something and giving it our intuitive attention, which can take a moment, is really the most respectful and attention-giving thing we can do. So when I realized I didn't need to have the answer right away, and I was allowed to, and Nash even benefited from me saying, you know what, bud? That's a great question, and it really deserves my full attention and focus. I don't have the answer off the top of my head, but I want to think about it more and get back to you on it. Can we talk about this before bed tonight or after dinner? I always get a sure, Mom. And he feels heard and open to speak when it comes up. And I don't feel as much pressure to be put on the spot and give a rushed answer. And he gets to see it's okay to take a second and think before we answer or speak. And that it's okay if he doesn't have the answers to things right away. So, with all of that said, keep that in mind and relate this tough conversation moment to where it applies for you. For sake of examples and relating, I'm going to use a romantic partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, significant other, as the characters for our tough conversation moment. So let's say something has been bugging you lately, and it just won't leave the back of your mind. And if you implement the tools I've talked about, or integrated any tools that feels relative to you, you have taken that hit and done something with it. Probably thought about it for a bit, got curious about it. Like, what is this reflecting to me? Where am I doing this to myself? Therefore, my partner is mirroring this feeling to me. What is the emotion it's bringing up? When did that start? Was it a year ago? A week ago? Then with that curiosity, I've gotten to the bottom of a reflection point and my emotion I'm feeling. That in itself can sometimes release something altogether. The other part to that is I give myself what I think I'm lacking from my partner. Let's say attention and intimacy. So I do this by checking in with myself more before committing to things or making decisions or taking action. Maybe that means journaling my intimate thoughts more or doing something that feels pleasurable, like a massage, stretching, picking up a new hobby that feels sacred. Okay, so I made this sound like this all gets done in a day. And actually, once you get the hang of it, it can definitely be fast like that. But a lot of the time, this will span over days or weeks or even months. The goal here is that we get clarity as quickly as possible to help release and move through it. But sometimes we're meant to be in that for a few days because we get more clarity through those moments. So try and be patient with yourself when it feels like it's taking a little longer than you want. So with that next step, you might find that nagging feeling goes away. Others, you'll find there is a piece that's still there. And this is how I know I've done my part solo and I need to loop in the other person. The nice part about the checklist we kind of went through right before this is we're going into this conversation now more grounded than if we would just react in the moment. We also are going into it probably with more clarity. So when we get into the weeds of the convo or argument, we don't get lost in the shuffle of it all, or at least not as much. You know, those moments, we've all had them. You also go into the conversation with the energy and confidence level up in a good way. Remember, energy has to be matched. So that means the likelihood of this discussion going the best it can, you have set the stage well. It also allows you to put you first. When we have a feeling and run quickly to another person to solve it, we unintentionally show ourselves that we can't do it without someone else. And that is not a fun place to operate from. Is community and support and partnership amazing and a part of life? Yes. We just don't want to start with the energy of, I can't do this without you. The messages and signals get crossed, and I promise you, from experience, it doesn't go well or feel good. It goes like that convo that you wish never started, and you're right in the middle of it, or the one that gets heightened way past what you thought was possible, or the one that ends poorly, or one you're in the midst of, and you can't even remember what you're truly arguing about. I know these well and have had practice at this quite a bit, and I've tried all sorts of ways. Before, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I see why these things are important and useful. Since we are all human, and at the end of the day, we can relate to each other on that alone, no matter who we are. We can relate to having human moments then. It's quite disarming when we can see it that way and express it. So in moments, I wanted it all to stop and wish I could hit the remote pause button, back out of the room slowly, and do that Men in Black thing and erase everyone's memory of it. Right then and there, not every time, but once I started to see what was happening, I have taken a deep breath and said, you know what? I walked into this super heightened, and I need to just take a minute to regroup my thoughts and emotions. It's on me. Can I just have 10 minutes? Or you could say 20 or 30. But why does this work so well? Because one, guaranteed you both want it to end, but no one knows how. If you're thinking it in that moment and you think of this tool, you are the higher frequency holder at the moment, so you will guide the interaction. Frequency is matched and highest one gets the floor, because that is always in the highest good of all involved. Also, with that little phrase and acknowledgement of the moment, you've taken accountability. Even if you have so many things you're pissed about, do you notice when someone goes, oh, I'm sorry, that was my fault. I apologize, I bumped into you. And the other person goes, oh my goodness, no, that was on me. I'm sorry, I should have been looking. It very quickly disarms and brings you closer, brings you to eye level again. Also, it doesn't feel good to be up and out of our body during an argument. So do it for you and regroup, because most likely you are playing out a reflection or an inside-out voice. So if you can see that for what it is and pinpoint your reflection, could take minutes, then the argument and energy of it has no other choice but to match you. You can even do this in the midst of an argument. Maybe while you're sitting there or standing there listening to the other person, instead of thinking of the next best thing to say, this could be the most helpful, beneficial piece for both of you. Start seeing in that moment, what is this reflection? What is this trying to show me? Where have I done this to myself? Where have I said this to myself before? You'll feel your partner diffuse because you'll get an aha moment. You'll get the breather. You'll feel more grounded, settled, and clear. We feed off of each other's energy. That's why we can't learn certain things on our own. We have to be in a relationship to do so. It's the bouncing and hijacking of energy. That's another day. But that fuels quickly and can hijack our actions and emotions if you don't know what to look for and how to remove yourself and force a pause. My peeps out there that are uneasy with a pause, I have been there and I totally get it. But you'll see in this moment that you'll be okay with it too. It'll just feel right. Because you were saying why you were pausing and you're giving a set time to come back to the moment. If you're like, shit, I don't know if I could tackle my reflection in 10 minutes, that's okay. Say 20 or 30 or pick a time later in that day after another activity. And it's always fair game to say, I'm still trying to tackle what I'm trying to say and how to say it. Can I have some more time? So let's say the other scenario is you've done all the things and you feel ready to talk and you are just curious on how to start the convo. You might be a little embarrassed, it might be triggering, you might feel like it's never a good time. Something is always coming up. And yes, read the room and get a feel for the best time so it's best for you and everyone involved. Just like if we knew our parents were pissed about something, that wasn't when we would go and ask them for something or to be able to stay out past curfew with our boyfriend, and that might have just been me. We probably felt it out and waited until the dust settled. So use your intuition here. And I've had experiences where there felt like there was never a good time. Things just kept popping up. So I knew then I needed to intuitively ask if X is the right time, regardless of how it looks. And you might get a yes. Or check in with you. Is it a matter of self-love and self-worth to have this conversation and take up space even if it's inconvenient? You can't mess this up with your intention in the right place. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we are all on a specific special journey. For example, I'd land in the camp of getting practice with taking up space when it's not convenient, because I used to be a people pleaser when I was younger. I didn't want to cause stress or pain or worry. I was very intuitive and empathic without even knowing what those things were, and I related to people on such a deep level. I would put their needs above my own, or their needs above the feeling of knowing I caused someone pain or suffering or frustration or inconveniencing. You might be someone that does that really well, and it's actually your place to practice putting others' needs in your awareness, or maybe practicing your intuition by asking yourself before doing, or waiting until the time is right instead of acting on impulse. So here we are, ready to talk about something. Here is one way you could start it. Hey, I have something that has been on my mind, and I've taken some time to think about it and do my own digging into why this bothers me or makes me feel XYZ. I'd love to connect with you on it and talk about it. Is now a good time? If you get a no, ask when would be a good time. If you get a yes, let's get into it. Well, kind of sounds aggressive. Let's just get into what to do next. Start with explaining what you're even talking about. Remember, where something you have been thinking about for days or weeks or months, this person might be just hearing about it for the first time. So put yourself in their shoes. Give them some context and do it by using an I feel statement, because that's truly what it's about. Sometimes it's about actions, but if you really drill it down, it's really how the actions made us feel, or lack of actions. This will help you relate and be seen in a vulnerable way instead of a demanding, wall up, we're on separate islands kind of way. I hate that separate islands feeling. I don't hate much. That feeling I despise. So my goal is to help guide us away from that more. So as you do that, be open and raw. Open that heart. Put the walls down. For some, that can be tough. For others, what do you have to lose? If this person can't hear you out from a place of truth and openness and grounding presence, well, it's going to be a long road. So either lead by example or let me know and we can chat about what we do from here in this space. A lot of the time, it's because we are not feeling accepting of our raw parts, our dark parts, our emotions we think might be too much. So know this person will always reflect, and sometimes we need help seeing when that's happening. Without being in your room with you or standing behind you during an argument, which sounds very creepy. I don't know, doesn't sound too bad. I think I'd love to have people that help and support me in a room with me while I'm having a discussion or an argument. Maybe that can be something I offer. Sounds intense. So without being in there with you, it's hard to guide you from here because it truly depends on the banter back and forth. But this is a really special starting point, and this took me years to figure out. I had to try it all sorts of ways and forget tools some days and use a bunch of others another. You'll know when you get it because you'll feel the difference. It's a great feeling to have a tough conversation or conflict be a beautiful guide in the next step of evolving in your relationship. That doesn't mean there aren't tough moments or moments you wish didn't happen. You just got to see it for what it is. It happened. Now let's see how we can use it to get to the next level of this ever-evolving growth and understanding ourselves and the lives we are living out and building and creating and experiencing. Phew. That was a big one. This episode, although I articulated it clearly and gave you some actionable steps, this came at the cost of a lot of work on my end and a lot of emotions and, to be honest, major exhaustion. So it has a special place in my heart, and I've been able to teach Nash things about relationships through this process as well. So I know out there in relationship land, no matter who it's with, can be tough. It is the most fulfilling part of what we do here on this planet, and also can be the most triggering, the most difficult, and the most painful at times. So know that I see you, I am in your corner, and see if this can help make things a little bit lighter. Here's to letting life, and finding purpose along the way. Okay, just because this episode's over, it doesn't mean our time together has to be. Check the show notes on ways for us to stay connected. And one more thing, if you found this episode helpful, I would be so excited if you chose to rate it, review it, like it, share it, or shout it from the rooftops to those you think might align with it. The more soul-aligned we are, the more beautiful, harmonious, and fulfilling this world becomes. We're in this wild ride of life together. Okay, that's all. I'm your host, Marlo Lemon, and you've been listening to Wild Voice.